You ever notice how trouble doesn't always come with warning? Sometimes it doesn't sneak in through the back door or crawl out of the dark. Sometimes it just knocks. That's how it started for me. Just 3 knocks. Heavy. Sharp. The kind that don't just hit wood, but hit you in the chest, deep down where you can't shake it. And the thing is, I should have ignored it. I should have stayed on that couch, let the night pass, and never opened that door. But I didn't. Because the moment you answer the wrong knock, your life stops being yours. Before I tell you what happened when I opened that door, ask yourself this: if a stranger knocked on your house tonight, would you know what to do? Subscribe now, because the next knock might not be for me. It might be for you. It was a humid late summer evening in Atlanta, the kind of night where the air itself pressed against your skin like wet cloth. I was sunk into the old couch in my living room, watching a rerun of a Falcons game I'd already seen twice before. My phone sat in my lap, glowing with half-hearted scrolling through Instagram posts. The house was quiet, the way I liked it, the way I needed it most days. That quiet broke with a sound I'll never forget. 3 knocks. Not a doorbell. Not a neighbor's casual tap. These were sharp, deliberate, and heavy. Each one sounded like it wanted to drive itself through the wood and into my bones. I froze, halfway between standing up and staying down. It was 8:37 p.m. Nobody came to my house that late. I thought about ignoring it. Thought about sitting back down, turning up the volume, letting whoever it was go away on their own. But the knocking came again, harder this time, like whoever was out there knew hesitation was setting in and wasn't about to let me slip away. My chest tightened. Something about that sound was wrong. Not dangerous exactly, just wrong. Like it didn't belong in the quiet safety of my house. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over the emergency dial as I crept to the door. The old wood floor groaned under each step. When I finally reached the peephole, I expected to see a delivery driver or maybe a lost neighbor. But it wasn't either. She stood just under the glow of the porch light. A woman in her early 50s, maybe, though the lines in her face hinted at years that felt heavier than numbers. Her clothes looked like they'd been pulled straight from the 90s, black slacks, cream blouse, and a blazer that had seen better decades. Her hair, streaked gray, was pulled tight into a bun, those stray strands framed her face. She held a clipboard in one hand and a large black suitcase in the other. But what struck me most wasn't her clothes, her age, or even the odd choice of visiting at night. It was her smile. Wide. Too wide. A perfect row of teeth that looked crafted, not grown. Her lips curled upward like the grin wasn't hers at all but something pasted there. I cracked the door. "Evening," she said, her voice smooth, almost melodic, but carrying an echo that didn't belong. "Sorry to trouble you at this hour, Mr. Johnson." The sound of my name made my throat tighten. "Do I know you?" I asked, sharper than I intended. Her smile widened, the 2 white teeth catching the porch light. "No, sir. But I know you. That's why I'm here." There are moments when your instincts flare, when every nerve in your body tells you to shut the door, lock it, and retreat into safety. This was one of those moments. But I didn't listen. I told myself it was curiosity. I told myself it was just a woman, just a stranger with a suitcase. But deep down, I knew it was something else. Against my better judgment, I opened the door wider, still keeping one hand tight on the handle. She lifted the suitcase slightly, the wheels squeaking against the porch. "I'm here to offer you something most men never get, Marcus. Not insurance. Not magazines. Not kitchen knives. I offer knowledge. Truth." I almost laughed. Almost told her I wasn't interested, that she could take her smile, her suitcase, and her clipboard and try the house across the street. But her words lodged in me. The way she said my name again, as though she'd been repeating it for years. The rhythm of her voice that made each word sound heavier than it should. "What kind of knowledge?" I asked, pretending to be skeptical, though the unease in my chest betrayed me. She tapped the suitcase once. The kind that explains why you've always felt out of place. Why you dream the things you dream. Why shadows seem to follow you even when you turn away. Her words landed like a dart. I swallowed, forced a smirk. If this is some kind of miracle self-help scam, you've got the wrong guy. She chuckled, soft but unsettling. Oh, Marcus. This isn't self-help. This is survival. Before I could shut the door, she bent down and flicked the suitcase latches open. The sound was sharp, too loud in the night air. She opened it just enough for me to see inside. Not books. Not pamphlets. Not samples. Photographs. Dozens of them. Old, worn, with yellowed edges. Beneath them, stacks of papers bound with string. And beneath that, a thick leather-bound ledger, its cover pressed with strange symbols I didn't recognize. Symbols that stirred something in me. A quiet pulse of dread. I stepped back. You've got the wrong house. She stepped forward. I caught the suffocating scent of her perfume, floral but heavy, like flowers pressed into rot. Marcus Johnson, she said softly, born June 17, 1989, Grady Memorial Hospital. Son of Robert and Elaine Johnson. Your father gone since you were 7. Your mother carrying a secret she never told you. My breath hitched. She had no business knowing that. How do you know this? Her smile faltered for the first time. Because I was there. I knew your mother. I knew the truth she tried to bury. And I know what haunts you, Marcus. She tapped the suitcase again. It's all in here. Names. Places. The beginning of a story that hasn't ended. I should have shut the door. I should have locked it. But instead, I found myself stepping aside, the words leaving my mouth before I could stop them. 10 minutes. Then you're gone. Her suitcase wheels squeaked against the floor as she entered, her presence dragging a chill into the house. She walked straight to the living room like she'd been there before, settling the suitcase onto the coffee table. Nice place, she murmured, almost distracted. Order matters when chaos is close. I stayed near the doorway, arms crossed, every nerve on edge. You said you knew my mom. Prove it. She didn't hesitate. From the suitcase, she pulled out an old Polaroid. My mother stood in it, smiling, outside the very house we were in. And beside her was a younger version of the woman sitting on my couch. Same sharp cheekbones. Same strange smile. That's impossible. What's impossible for you, she said, is memory for me. She opened the ledger. The pages weren't filled with English. They weren't in any language I could place. Jagged letters, spirals that seemed to shift if I stared too long. But she read them as though they were as clear as newspaper print. Your bloodline, she said softly, is tied to something old. Something older than Atlanta, older than this country. Men in your family have run from it. Women have tried to hide it. But it always finds its way back. Her voice pressed down on me like weight. The air thickened. My chest rose and fell faster. She flipped to another page and pressed her finger against a name. Robert Johnson. My father. You've been told he died in a car accident, she whispered. But that wasn't the truth. He was taken. I shook my head, my voice breaking. Taken? By who? Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time, the smile fell away. Not who, Marcus. What? The room felt colder. The shadows stretched. My heart slammed against my ribs. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't about sales. It wasn't about knowledge. It wasn't even about her. It was about me. If a stranger like this ever knocked on your door, would you know what to do? Most people wouldn't. And if you're not subscribed, you won't hear the warning in time. Subscribe now, because the next knock might not be for me. It might be for you. And if you're still not subscribing, then comment below why. Tell me why you'd rather stand in the dark with no warning when the shadows start calling your name. The woman sat across from me, her suitcase sprawled open like a wound on my coffee table. She ran her hand across the leather cover of the ledger, the symbols pressed into it catching the light in ways that made them seem alive. I couldn't sit. I hovered near the doorway, heart pounding, body tight. My instincts were screaming, but my curiosity drowned them out. "You said you knew my mom," I forced out, my voice thinner than I wanted. She nodded slowly, her gray-streaked bun shifting slightly with the motion. Then she held up the Polaroid again. There was no denying it. My mother was there, smiling in front of this very house. The younger version of this woman stood beside her. The resemblance was impossible to argue with. The image shook something deep inside me, like a puzzle piece being forced where it didn't belong. That's impossible," I whispered. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. Instead, she slid the photo back into the suitcase and flipped open the ledger with an almost tender motion. The pages inside seemed wrong. Not just unreadable, but unnatural. Symbols, jagged and looping, bent into spirals that shifted the longer I stared. It felt like they were written to move when eyes were on them. But she read them out loud like they were nothing more than English words. "Your bloodline," she began, "is tied to something older than you can imagine. Your father ran from it. Your mother tried to hide it. But blood doesn't forget. Debt doesn't die." Her voice carried a weight that pressed on the walls. My breathing grew shallow. "What debt?" I managed to ask, though my throat felt locked. Her smile curled, too wide again, like her face had been built for grins alone. "The kind no man chooses. The kind inherited in silence, buried in shadows. A debt of hunger." My skin prickled. Hunger. I wanted to tell her to leave, to take her cursed suitcase and walk back into the night. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because even in my fear, part of me wanted to hear more. She flipped another page and pressed her long finger against the name written there. Robert Johnson. My father. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. "You've been told he died in a car accident," she said softly. "That isn't the truth." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Her eyes rose from the page and locked onto mine. "He didn't die that way. He was taken." My knees felt weak. I gripped the doorframe for balance. "Taken? By who?" The silence stretched long enough that I thought she might not answer. Then she leaned forward, her face dim under the lamp's glow. "Not who, Marcus." Her voice dropped into something colder, darker. "What?" The room seemed to breathe then. The shadows on the walls lengthened, stretching out toward me as if they'd heard her words and were answering them. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, but they didn't move back. "What the hell are you talking about?" I snapped, though my voice cracked halfway. She closed the ledger gently, like it was a sleeping child. "You already know. Haven't you felt it? The nights you wake from dreams you can't explain. The flicker of something at the edge of your vision. The weight in the room when you're alone." I said nothing. Because she was right. For years, I'd brushed it all off, nightmares, stress, tricks of light. But deep down, I'd felt it. Something close. Something watching. Her grin returned, slow and sharp. "That's what took him. And if you don't face it, Marcus, it will take you too." The scent coming off her clothes was getting stronger, sweet and suffocating. Flowers left too long in a sealed room. It clung to me, filled my lungs, made my skin itch. I wanted to throw open the windows, but something in me said the air wouldn't change even if I did. "Why me?" I asked finally, hating the desperation in my tone. "Why my family?" She tilted her head, almost pitying. "Because debts always find their way home." She reached into the suitcase again, pulled out another Polaroid. My father this time. He looked younger, alive, standing in front of a church I didn't recognize. Beside him, my mother. And behind them, shadowed but still there, was the woman sitting in front of me. I staggered back a step. My throat dried out. "This doesn't make sense," I muttered. "This isn't real." Her laugh was soft but cruel. "Reality doesn't need your permission, Marcus." The walls of my house felt closer now, pressing in. Every creak of the floor sounded louder. I swore I heard faint whispers crawling out of the vents, hushed words I couldn't make out. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. "I want you out. Right now." She closed the suitcase with a soft click. Stood slowly, like she had all the time in the world. Her smile never faded. "You can throw me out, Marcus," she said calmly. "But you can't throw this out. It's in you. It always has been." Her perfume trailed behind her as she moved toward the door. Before she reached it, she stopped and glanced back. "Ask your mother about Ebenezer Baptist Church, 1997. Then tell me I'm lying." She left without another word. The air in the room didn't lighten when she was gone. If anything, it grew heavier. And when I turned back to the table, my stomach flipped. The suitcase was still there. If you think this is just a story, ask yourself, what if it isn't? What if the dead is already walking behind you? Don't take that risk blind. Subscribe now, because the next shadow may not wait for you to believe. If you're not subscribing, then at least explain why. Drop it in the comments. Tell me why you'd choose silence when the thing in the dark already knows your name. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the glow of the street light bleeding through the blinds. My chest felt heavy, my mind replaying her words over and over. Ask your mother about Ebenezer Baptist Church, 1997. I tried to push it away. Tried to tell myself she was some kind of scam artist, a con woman who'd studied my family well enough to make her lies stick. But no scammer knew about my father like that. No scammer had photos of my mother smiling beside her. At 1:14 a.m., I sat up and grabbed my phone. My hand hovered over her name in the contacts for longer than it should have. Calling her at that hour felt wrong, but not calling felt worse. I pressed the button. The phone rang 3 times before she answered, her voice groggy but soft. "Marcus? What's wrong?" Just hearing her steadied me for a moment, like a rope thrown to someone slipping off the edge. But the words were stuck in my throat. I sat there breathing, trying to force them out. "Marcus?" she asked again, her tone shifting from sleepy to worried. I swallowed hard. "What happened at Ebenezer in 1997? The line went silent. Not the kind of silence where someone's thinking of how to answer, but the kind where the air itself feels pulled out of the room. I pulled the phone away, checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Still connected. "Mom?" I said, my voice shaking. Her reply came low, trembling. "Who told you that?" My throat tightened. "I just need to know." Her breath on the other end was ragged. She sounded smaller than I'd ever heard her. "Marcus, don't ever say that name again. Do you hear me? Don't ever bring it up." My pulse hammered in my ears. "Why? What happened?" There was another long pause. Then her voice cracked. "That was the year we buried your father twice." The words hit me like a physical blow. My hand went numb, and I nearly dropped the phone. "Twice?" I whispered. "What do you mean twice?" But she didn't answer. The line stayed open just long enough for me to hear her soft sob, then the click of disconnection. I called back. Once. Twice. 3 times. No answer. By the 4th attempt, the calls went straight to voicemail. The house felt different after that. Not just quiet, wrong. The air pressed heavy on my skin. I heard the old floorboards groan, but I hadn't moved. I told myself it was just the house settling, but the sound was too deliberate, like footsteps pacing slowly upstairs. I turned on the TV, flipped through channels, anything to keep the silence away. But the whispers still came. Soft. Crawling out of the vents. Slithering under the floor. I pressed the volume higher, but it didn't drown them out. At 3:07 a.m., I heard it. A voice. Hoarse. Broken. Familiar. Marcus. My father's voice. The call from the dark. I sat frozen, eyes locked on the dark hallway leading to the stairs. My breath came shallow, my palms slick with sweat. Marcus. The voice came again, this time closer, from the living room below. Logic screamed at me to stay put. To lock my door and wait for morning. But something else moved me. A pull I couldn't resist, stronger than fear. Step by step, I crept out of bed. The hallway stretched in shadows, each creak of the floor echoing too loud. When I reached the stairs, I held the railing tight and peered down. The living room light was off. But I didn't need it to see. The suitcase was back on the coffee table. My throat went dry. I'd watched her take it with her. I'd seen it leave my house. But there it was. Black leather, the same faint scratches on the handle, the same brass latches glinting faintly in the dark. And it was open. Inside, the photographs were gone. The documents too. Only the ledger remained. Its pages fluttered slightly, though there was no wind. Against every ounce of reason, I stepped closer. My body felt like it was moving on its own. I leaned over the coffee table. The ledger was open to a fresh page. And scrawled across it, in shaky handwriting, was my father's name. Robert Johnson. Beneath it, a date. Tonight. What would you do if you saw your parents' name written for tonight, knowing they'd already been buried once? If you're not subscribed, you'd never hear the warning before it was your turn. Subscribe now, don't wait until the book opens to your name. My breath hitched. My chest seized. My skin burned cold. Marcus. This time the voice was right behind me. I spun around. And froze. He was there. Or what was left of him. His skin was gray, stretched too tight over sharp bones. His eyes were sunken, glassy but alive with something wrong. His clothes hung loose, shredded in places, dirt and ash clinging to them. But it was him. My father. The smile was what undid me. It was too wide, too sharp, the same wrong smile the saleswoman wore. He lifted a trembling hand toward me. I waited, he rasped. His voice cracked like broken glass. I waited for you to open the book. I stumbled back, my knees buckling. You're not real, I whispered. You can't be real. But he stepped forward, his movements stiff, unnatural. You'll carry it now, he croaked. The debt. The hunger. The room seemed to collapse inward, shadows thickening around him. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. I blinked, and he was gone. Just the open ledger remained. If you still think you can ignore this, then go ahead, don't subscribe. But when the debt comes knocking at your door, you'll wish you had. If you won't subscribe, at least leave a comment and tell me why you're choosing silence over survival. The room was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty but watched. The kind of silence that feels like a trap. I stood in front of the open ledger, my father's name staring up at me in shaky, blood-red ink. My legs trembled, my breath came short, and yet, I didn't move. Because I knew he was still there. Not gone. Not finished. Just waiting. And then it came. Marcus. His voice slid across the air again, but this time it wasn't behind me. It was everywhere. Crawling out of the vents. Stretching through the walls. Dripping from the ceiling. I turned slowly, my stomach tightening with every second. And there he was. He stood near the doorway now, his figure hunched, his skin still gray but shifting, twitching like it couldn't hold itself together. His eyes locked onto mine. Glassy. Empty. But full of a hunger that made my blood run cold. His mouth stretched into that same terrible smile. I waited, he rasped again. I waited for you to open the book. My body screamed at me to run, but my feet rooted to the ground. My chest heaved. What are you? I forced out. His head tilted, the bones in his neck cracking audibly. Your father. And not your father. Both. He shuffled forward, each step dragging across the wood. His hand reached out, long fingers trembling like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. You'll carry it now, he whispered. His voice was not just sound, it was weight. The debt. The hunger. It passes down. Always down. The air around him thickened. My throat burned as if I were inhaling smoke. I don't want it, I spat, my voice cracking. Take it back. Leave me alone. He shook his head slowly, his smile splitting wider until it looked inhuman. It doesn't ask what you want. It takes. That's what debt does. The ledger flipped its own pages, one after another, faster than my eyes could follow. Then it stopped. My name. Written over and over. Marcus Johnson. Each line bled, letters dripping crimson as if written in blood still fresh. The words shifted, crawling across the page, twisting into the cracks of my skin. I stumbled back, clutching my arm as if I could scrape it away, but the burning sensation crawled deeper. When I looked up, he was closer. His hand hovered inches from my chest. The smell hit me before the touch did. Earth, ash, rot, and something sharp like metal. You'll carry it, he said again, his voice shaking with urgency. You'll feed it. I shook my head violently. No. But his fingers pressed against my shirt, right over my heart. A cold seared through me, colder than anything I'd ever felt, like ice and fire twisted into one. I gasped, my knees giving out. My vision blurred. When it cleared, he was gone. But the burning remained. I stumbled into the bathroom, gripping the sink, splashing water on my face. My reflection looked back at me, pale, eyes wide, chest heaving. For a moment, it was just me. Then the smile came. Slow. Wrong. Stretching too wide. But I wasn't smiling. The reflection leaned forward, closer than I was, its skin splitting at the corners of its mouth until blood leaked down its chin. Hungry, it whispered. The mirror cracked. I stumbled back, my spine slamming into the wall. The entire house seemed to exhale then. The walls groaned, the lights flickered, and I heard movement in every direction at once, footsteps above me, whispers in the vents, the creak of the stairs. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, but there was no signal. No bars. Nothing but the black screen glowing against my face. The ledger sat on the coffee table still, pages fluttering like wings. I felt it. I knew it. It was alive. And it wanted me. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. My father. His smile. His hand pressed against my chest. The burning in my veins. By dawn, the whispers faded. The shadows shrank back into their corners. But the weight didn't lift. Because I understood now. I wasn't just being haunted. I'd inherited something. Imagine looking into the mirror and seeing a smile that isn't yours. That's how it starts, quiet, small, but irreversible. If you're not subscribed, you won't see it coming until it's too late. Subscribe now, before the reflection decides to move without you. If you refuse to subscribe, then speak up. Leave a comment. Tell me why you'd rather risk being next in the bloodline than prepare yourself for the warning signs. The morning after that night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't even sit still. My body felt borrowed, like something else was moving inside my skin. I kept staring at the crack in the bathroom mirror, replaying the sound of my father's voice, the way his cold hand pressed against my chest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the ledger, the pages flipping on their own, my name written again and again. I needed answers. So I did the only thing I could. I started digging. I pulled out old photo albums, boxes of papers, anything left from my parents. Most of it was yellowed bills, birthday cards, school photos. Normal things. But buried at the bottom of one box, I found it. A newspaper clipping. Local church fire leaves 3 dead, 1997. The headline sat above a picture of Ebenezer Baptist Church, its walls blackened, its windows shattered. The article said the fire started during a revival service. The victims were unnamed. But I knew. That was the year my father was buried twice. I folded the clipping into my pocket, my hands trembling. I wasn't the only one searching. That same day, I drove to the local library, desperate for records, for history, for anything that explained the ledger. That's where I met Charles. He was older than me, maybe mid-40s, sitting at a long oak table with stacks of books piled around him. He wore wire-rimmed glasses and had a notebook filled with scribbles that looked eerily like the symbols from the ledger. I sat across from him without asking, and when our eyes met, he just nodded. "You saw it too," he said quietly. My blood ran cold. "Saw what?" "The book," he answered. His eyes didn't leave mine. "You've opened it." For hours, we talked in hushed voices. Charles told me about his own encounter, his version of the saleswoman, though he called her something else. Not a saleswoman. A messenger. "She came to me last year," he said. Same smile. Same book. Same lies wrapped in truth. "What did she tell you?" I asked. That my grandfather's death wasn't natural. That my family owed a debt stretching back generations. At first, I thought it was a trick. But then the dreams started. He removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes. Dreams of ropes. Chains. Prison cells. The smell of burning wood. Faces that look like mine, but not mine, screaming my name. My stomach twisted. His words were too close to what I'd been living. A week later, Charles introduced me to someone else, Fatima. She was younger, maybe late 20s, with a voice soft but steady, like someone used to carrying secrets. She'd flown in from overseas, chasing the same nightmare across oceans. "My family is cursed too," she said, her dark eyes fixed on mine. I didn't believe it until I came here. Until I felt the ground breathe beneath the church. She told me about her first encounter. A figure in her grandmother's house, offering her a book in the dead of night. She'd refused to open it. Days later, her grandmother was found dead, her body twisted in ways that didn't make sense. "It hunts through bloodlines," Fatima whispered. "It doesn't care about time or distance. If you carry the name, it will find you." When the three of us sat together, the air seemed to change. Charles's notebook filled with symbols began to glow faintly under the lamp. Fatima's eyes glazed over, and she began to whisper words none of us understood. And then it happened. We saw them. Not dreams. Not memories. Visions. Charles screamed as he watched a man in shackles dragged across a dirt road. Fatima wept as she saw a woman tied to a post, flames curling around her. I saw men in black robes, their faces hidden, marking names in a ledger just like the one in my house. And through all of it, one word echoed. Underwood. The visions snapped away as suddenly as they came. We sat in silence, trembling, gasping for breath. Charles finally spoke. Underwood. It's always Underwood. Fatima nodded. In every generation, in every story, the name comes back. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. What does it mean? Neither of them answered. Because none of us knew. But the name hung in the air like smoke, choking us even after the silence returned. That night, when I drove home, the streets looked different. Every shadow seemed longer. Every passing face seemed to linger on me a second too long. I pulled into my driveway, sat in the car, and stared at my house. The windows were dark, the blinds drawn, but I felt watched. Because I finally understood. This wasn't just about me. It wasn't just my family. It was bigger. Older. Endless. And no matter how far I ran, the debt was already waiting. If you think you're safe because you don't know the name yet, you're not. The debt doesn't need your permission to find you. Subscribe now, before it writes itself into your bloodline. And if you won't subscribe, then at least confess. Leave a comment. Tell me why you'd rather stay blind while the shadows are already circling your family tree. I met Charles and Fatima again the next night. We gathered in Charles's apartment, curtains drawn, books scattered across the table, the air heavy with incense he swore would keep them out. It didn't. Charles sat hunched over his notebook, scribbling frantically. His hands shook so badly the pen left jagged lines across the page. "They're coming for me," he muttered. "I can hear the chains. I can smell the smoke." I tried to calm him, but his eyes darted to the corners of the room, wide and unblinking. "They don't just want me," he said. "They want us all. But I'm next." Fatima touched his arm gently. "You're not alone." Charles's laugh was hollow. "Alone is safer." It happened quickly. One moment Charles was scratching symbols into his notebook, the next he froze. His head jerked back, his eyes rolling white. His mouth opened, and a sound tore out of him that didn't belong to any living man. A scream, but not his. We tried to hold him, but his body convulsed violently. His skin blackened in patches, veins bulging dark beneath the surface. Then the smell hit, burning wood, the stench of ash. Charles gasped one last time, then went still. The notebook slid from his hand. And written across the last page, in handwriting that wasn't his, was one word. Underwood. Fatima sobbed, her body shaking. But she didn't run. She stood tall, eyes glassy with tears, and whispered a prayer under her breath. "This curse is older than us," she said. "Older than the fire. Older than the chains. It carries the same name every time, Underwood." I asked her what it meant, but she didn't answer. She just stared at the ceiling like she could already see what was waiting for her. Later that night, I walked Fatima to her hotel. She refused to let me inside, said it was safer if she faced it alone. I argued, begged, but she only smiled sadly. "If I let you in, Marcus, it'll take you too." I waited outside the building, pacing the street, until I heard it. Her scream. By the time I burst through the door, it was too late. Fatima was sprawled across the floor, her eyes wide open, her lips twisted in a silent cry. The walls around her were scorched black as if flames had licked them, but her body bore no burns. And carved into the wood of the hotel door, deep and jagged, was the same word. Underwood. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe without hearing their screams. I sat in my car all night, my hands gripping the wheel, my eyes scanning every shadow. When dawn came, I drove to the cemetery where my father was buried. I thought maybe standing there would give me strength, or at least clarity. Instead, it gave me the truth. I found an old man kneeling by another grave, his back bent, his cane planted firmly in the dirt. His eyes found mine, and I swear I saw recognition there. "You carry it now," he said, his voice low and cracked. "Carry what?" I demanded. "The Underwood debt." He smiled faintly, and I realized his teeth were too white. Too perfect. Just like hers. That night, the saleswoman returned. Same knock. Same wide smile. I threw the door open, rage boiling through me. "What the hell did you do to them?" I shouted. She didn't flinch. "I didn't do anything, Marcus. They resisted. The debt doesn't like resistance." My fists clenched. "And my father?" Her smile faltered. "Just a little. He became what you'll become if you're not careful. A collector. A servant of the ledger. The hunger took him, and now he takes for it." My stomach dropped. "You're lying." But deep down, I knew she wasn't. She set the suitcase on my table once more. The ledger opened by itself, its pages fluttering until it landed on a new spread. My name. Marcus Johnson. Written in blood-red ink, not once, not twice, but across every line of the page. Each entry had a date. Future dates. Tomorrow. Next month. Next year. Again and again, stretching on like a sentence with no end. My hands shook. My chest tightened. I tried to close the book, but the pages wouldn't move. The ink bled, dripping onto my skin, burning as it sank into me. The saleswoman leaned close, her perfume suffocating me. "You see now," she whispered. "This is not a story you can step away from. This is your inheritance. Your father took his place. Charles. Fatima. And now you." Her smile stretched until it split the corners of her mouth. "You belong to the ledger. Think your family tree is clean? Think again. The names written there may not be the only ones waiting. Subscribe now, because if the ledger ever flips to your bloodline, you'll want to know before it's too late. And if you still won't subscribe, then face it. Comment below and tell me why. Tell me why you'd rather be silent while the ledger writes your name over and over again." I didn't bother locking the door anymore. What good would it do? Locks were for people trying to keep out the living. The dead didn't need permission. And the dead had already found me. So when the knock came again, 3 sharp, deliberate raps against the wood, I didn't move right away. I just sat in my chair, staring at the dark window, my body heavy with exhaustion. The knock came again. Louder. I stood, dragged myself to the door, and opened it. She was there. The same saleswoman. The same faded blazer, the same suffocating perfume, the same smile stretched too wide. But this time, her eyes were different. Darker. Hungrier. "You've been running in circles," she said softly. "But it always comes back here." She set her suitcase on the table again, her fingers brushing the leather with almost loving care. "You've seen what happens when you resist," she continued. "Charles. Fatima. Your father. All tried to fight. All lost." I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. "And what if I don't resist?" Her smile widened, teeth glinting unnaturally white. "Then you live. You feed the ledger, but you live. You become what your father became, a collector. A keeper of the debt." The air in the room tightened, pressing on my chest. "And if I refuse?" She leaned closer, her scent choking me. "Then you'll be devoured. Slowly. Painfully. Until nothing remains but your shadow." The ledger flipped its own pages again, landing on a spread I hadn't seen before. My name filled every line, each one tied to visions that crawled out of the book and into the room. I saw flames devouring cities. Faces I didn't know screaming as ash fell from the sky. Armies of shadow figures marching through empty streets. And in the center of it all, I saw myself. Standing tall. My eyes black. My mouth twisted in that same wide, sharp smile. Leading them. I staggered back, shaking my head violently. "No. That's not me. That'll never be me." Her laugh was low, like thunder rumbling underground. "It's already written, Marcus. The only question is whether you'll step willingly, or be dragged." She slid the ledger toward me, the pages pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. "Touch it," she whispered. "Claim it. And you'll never have to fear again. The shadows will serve you, not stalk you. The hunger will be yours to control, not consume you." My hands trembled above the book. Every part of me screamed to slam it shut, to throw it into fire, to run and never look back. But another voice whispered, low, cold, inside my own head. "It's the only way. Don't resist. Take it." I closed my eyes, sweat dripping down my temple. "No," I whispered to myself. "It's a trick." Her smile faltered for the first time. "You're weaker than I thought." And then he appeared again. My father. But this time, he wasn't gray and broken. He was whole. Young. Strong. The way I remembered him from the few memories I had left. He stood in the corner of the room, his eyes fixed on me, his face calm. "Son," he said gently. I froze. "Don't fight it," he continued. "I fought, and I lost. Don't make the same mistake. Take it. Live." My chest ached. My throat burned. "You're not real," I whispered. But part of me wanted to believe. Part of me needed to. The saleswoman's voice cut in again, sharp as a blade. "This is your moment, Marcus. Choose now. The ledger doesn't wait. Either you join, or you're consumed." Her suitcase snapped shut, echoing through the room like a gunshot. She stood tall, her grin stretching inhumanly wide. "You don't have forever," she whispered. "You have tonight." And then, like a shadow pulling itself back into darkness, she was gone. The room fell silent, but the ledger still pulsed on the table. I sat staring at it, my hands shaking, my breath shallow. Because I knew she was right about one thing. The choice wasn't going away. If this was you, if the book was on your table right now, would you know what choice to make? If you're not subscribed, you'll never know when the decision comes for you. Subscribe now, before the ledger flips open in your home. If you won't subscribe, then explain it. Comment why. Tell me why you'd rather risk being consumed than prepare for what waits in the dark. I didn't move for hours after she left. I just sat there, staring at the ledger, its faint pulse filling the room like a second heartbeat. The world outside my window was quiet. Too quiet. No cars passing, no neighbors' lights, not even the hum of crickets. Just silence. My phone had no signal. The television flickered static. Even the clock on the wall had stopped. The only thing alive in the room was the book. I kept asking myself the same question: what happens if I refuse? The answer was already carved into Charles's face, etched into the walls of Fatima's hotel room, buried in my father's broken body. Refusal wasn't survival. Refusal was slow death. But acceptance. I looked at the visions still burning in my mind. Cities on fire. Armies of shadows. My own eyes blackened, my smile stretched wide as I led them forward. If I took it, I'd live. But I wouldn't be me anymore. Maybe I never really had a choice. At 2:11 a.m., the house groaned like it was alive. The walls stretched with deep cracks. The floor vibrated beneath my feet. The air grew colder with each breath. I heard it again. Whispers. Dozens of voices this time, crawling out of the vents, whispering my name in broken unison. Marcus. 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 I stood, my knees weak, and stumbled toward the bathroom. I needed to see my face. I needed proof I was still me. The mirror stood above the sink, cracked from the night before. I leaned in close, gripping the porcelain with trembling hands. For a moment, it was just me. Tired. Pale. Broken. I exhaled, relief flooding my chest. "It's just me," I whispered. And then the reflection smiled. I didn't. The grin spread slowly across its face, wider and wider, stretching until the skin around the mouth split open. Blood trickled down the reflection's chin, dripping onto the sink though my own mouth stayed shut. I stumbled back, but the reflection leaned forward. Its lips moved without mine. Hungry. The sound wasn't just in the mirror, it was in my ears, in my chest, in my veins. The glass cracked further, lines spreading across the surface like spiderwebs. My reflection's skin peeled back at the edges, its teeth too sharp, its eyes too black. It pressed its hand against the glass. The mirror groaned. And then I saw it, my reflection wasn't trying to get out. It was inviting me in. I staggered back, my back hitting the wall, but the cracks spread faster, splintering until the whole mirror looked ready to collapse. The last thing I saw before the lights went out was the reflection's mouth splitting open into something inhuman, blood pouring freely, teeth stretching longer than they should. Hungry, it whispered again, the word echoing even after the glass finally shattered. The house went dark. The whispers stopped. And I was alone with nothing but the sound of my own breath, and the faint scrape of something moving in the dark. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and it'll all be gone. Maybe this is just a nightmare I'll shake off with daylight. Or maybe tomorrow isn't written for me anymore. Maybe the ledger has already claimed it. If you saw your own reflection move without you, what would you do? Don't wait until the glass cracks to wonder. Subscribe now, before the hunger finds your face in the dark. The house went dark. The mirror shattered. And the hunger whispered my name. I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow. Maybe I've already been written into the ledger. Maybe I've already taken my father's place. Or maybe you'll see me again, smiling back at you from the wrong side of the glass. But remember this, stories like mine don't stay stories for long. They spread. They choose. And sometimes, they choose the one listening.